Welcome to the Popular Pig Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rooda, and joining us today is Justin and Jay from Orbit. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Good. Excited to have you guys on the podcast here. I've known you guys for quite a while. Doing a lot of really good stuff in the industry. There's a handful of things at any given moment that are, I'd say, blowing up in the industry, and you guys are involved in one of those right now. And so I'm excited to kind of share with all the listeners what that is and tell your story. I think you guys have a very entrepreneurial story in the sense that you didn't just come into the industry and say, this is what we're going to do. We know best. You said, this is what I think we can do. And then you failed a few times, and then you ended up finding the sweet spot. And so excited to tell that story today. Before we get going, could you guys give a little bit of a background on, where'd you grow up? How'd you get into the industry? And maybe take a few minutes to dive into that. And we'll start with Jay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so grew up here in Cedar Rapids. Basically, I fell into the industry, to be honest with you. Had never been in a pig barn and stuff like that. I was working for our parent company today, Circle Computer Resources, CCR Technologies. And basically, Brenneman Pork had reached out to us. And we bank at Hills Bank, they bank at Hills Bank, and they reached out to the bank and said, hey, what's a good IT provider, right? And we were doing IT services at the time, and so they reached out, and we were like, yeah, we can help you out. We can do some IT services. And I wasn't really involved at this point. I was in a different part of the business at that time. Then basically, so we did that that was in 2019. About 2021, I think, is when they wanted pig flow throughout their farms in Missouri. And so that's when we demanded Wi-Fi, right, throughout the farm. And so we were like, yep, we can do this, right? And we went in and we started building out the Wi-Fi in the barn, and we did it wrong. We learned that it's a lot different to put Wi-Fi in a barn than it is an office.
You picked a really big farm to do it wrong, right? We did it wrong on like a 2,000 head sow farm when we were playing around with it.
Yeah.
You took on like a 10,000.
Exactly. We did it wrong. And so it was, and that's when I got involved, right? And, it was like, hey, Jay, can you help us fix this? And, coming from a technology background and stuff like that, I'm looking at a network map they threw on my desk, and I'm like, why do you need this much infrastructure in a barn? Like, what are you doing? And, you got fiber in a barn running through a barn, like, and to me at the time, I'll be honest with you, like, I thought of like my uncle, like my great uncle, he had a little red barn on his, property, right? And that was a barn to me.
You were thinking cows, chickens,
exactly
the family farm.
The family farm, and I'd never been. I mean, born and raised here in Cedar Rapids, right? But I'd never been on a farm before, and so it was a very interesting experience for me to get to go into one of Brenneman's barns, and that's really how I got into the industry is fixing a Wi-Fi project that we messed up on.
Gotcha. So that's kind of an interesting way to get pulled in.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
What about you, Justin? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up down in Burlington, so city boy. And back in the 80s, my mother dated a pig farmer out in Henry County. Sorry about that. And so that was my first foray onto the farm, and I did not fall in love with pigs at the time.
Did he make you work with them?
I watched what he did, and I didn't want to do that. So that was a little different back then for sure. So that was the first touch there, and then went to school, ended up at Iowa State, so ag systems technology. So just a lot of ag. I've been doing that most of my career one way or the other, either the technology part or the ag part. So, fell into this position here and starting to enjoy it a little more as far as the pigs and learning just 3 years of learning the industry and understanding everything. And really enjoyed that. I will add that all these failures happened before my time, so everything is perfected now.
They should have just had you on the team from the start.
Yeah, right. I was a long way away when that started. So, Yeah, so nope, that's not much of an origin story there, but that's me.
And then you do some work with some of the local restaurants and bars, and we'll probably pull in some of the video stuff around that as well too later. But
Yeah, so I did for a while there, manage a local bar in Marion, and so as we tried out some different camera systems and stuff, we threw some up there, and facial recognition, so Jay here could tell any time I had been in the bar and what times and how many days. So I never got in too much trouble for it. At least it was after hours.
yeah, I'll never forget we were down at the Carthage conference, and it was probably like 9 at night, and we knew you were going to be working and doing something. We're like, oh, I wonder if Justin's in there. So you pull up the camera, and there was Justin. So we were slacking him sending him pictures.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey man, go back over to the pool table, and you just see him swing his head around and look at the camera like, oh, you sons of.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure you're in Iowa City, and
We might have been, yeah.
making fun of me singing karaoke. So I was glad that these cameras didn't have audio.
It was actually after the
Fever game, I think, or
no
Hawks.
It was after the
Fry Fest?
Fry Fest.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
it
Fry
was.
Fest.
Yes.
It was, we were sitting at the pizza place eating some pizza, and that's when we pulled up the cameras.
That
Yeah.
just seemed to be the best idea at the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A few beers and
I was gonna say after a few
some
drinks and
surveillance.
stuff.
So let's see what Justin's up to.
Singing away.
Oh, that's pretty great. So when you guys look at connectivity and pig production and just what that all entailed, can you talk about that journey? You go into the farm, you figure out everything is broken, it's overwired, it's overbuilt. Maybe talk through some of that. And even an area I'd love to get into is IT teams are supposed to protect their organization. And often I think they're picking the biggest and the baddest solutions that provide the most protection, but then that creates a massive cost barrier to bringing connectivity throughout farms because they're wanting to wire them as if it's a hospital or a packing plant, but it's completely different. So maybe just talk about that progression and what you've learned, and we'll start right at fixing that network at Brenneman's.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to that day, right? We took the same technology stack that we would use in your office, right? And we took and put that into a barn. And that technology stack, it is very secure. It is cost money. There is annual license fees with it, all of that kind of stuff. And so really what we learned is like, okay, there's a very expensive way to build a network, and then there's a way that works good enough in a barn, right? Still delivers the same level of uptime, which, what I've learned since 2021 is that's critical, right? Is your uptime.
Yeah, what you need in NASA versus what you need in a pig farm, it's different.
Correct. You can still deliver a great uptime with using some of these cost-effective solutions, right? And then, we talked, it was how do we install this and how do we make it so it's easy to service from a biosecurity perspective, and that was probably my biggest challenge, when I entered the industry.
Which is a win-win, though, because you don't want to have to go into that farm all the time.
Correct.
Because then you have biosecurity downtime, but it's also another time you're rolling wheels with the truck. But as the producer, the less people have to come into my facilities, the better.
Exactly.
And we already find that with like wireless networks, like with repeaters.
Yep.
One goes down, now I got to go fix this, and you just have all these biosecurity events.
Correct. And that was, it was like, hey, just the placement of how do we place this equipment that makes it so I don't, I can do as much as I can remotely, but then how do I place the equipment that I don't have to shower into that facility every single time, right? How can I do it that I can go into the attic potentially and do it? Can I place some stuff in a watershed or a generator shed way out by the road, not near the farm, right? And can I do some stuff like that? And that is, I would say, the evolution that took us, a couple years. Probably, I would say that we didn't have a good recipe, I'm going to call it, until Bredeman Hill Farm, right? And they did that remodel 2022-ish. And that's when, I felt comfortable. Okay, we know how to do networks in farms now.
What do you think from when you started your discovery, right? No pig production background. You're walking in, this thing's wired like it's the Pentagon. How much waste do you think was in the original approach? How much cost? I mean, I'm not going to ask you for specific numbers because every farm's unique, but is it half of what you originally thought it was when you walked in? How much have you been able to trim away by finding a more practical approach to the sow farm or in pig production?
Yeah, it's hard to put numbers on it.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I think it wasn't as much overbuilt infrastructure. It was not using the right tool in the right place, right? It was, hey, let's think about you're pressure washing these every single day, these facilities. Are we putting the right wireless access points? Are we putting access points that can't get power washed and stuff like that? And so it was those.
Yeah, is your switch that's exposed to the environment sitting in a room that gets power washed once every week?
Exactly. And it was like, okay, how do we do this? And because, frankly, when I got involved, it was because we had built out a network and all the access points were down in the facility, right? And most of it was because it had been power washed, right? The other thing you got to think about is like, okay, if you want 100% coverage in your farm, Wi-Fi with all the metal that's in these barns, Wi-Fi is going to penetrate those walls a little bit differently. And that was a thing that we had to keep in
Well, some farms,
mind.
right? You've got fiberglass walls, you've got plywood walls, and then you've got those steel walls. And yeah, those steel walls, you're almost at a point where an access point has to be in every farrowing room, no matter how big, because
Correct.
you just can't get through it.
Absolutely. And so it was learning that type of stuff, right? It was, learning, okay, this is the right tool in the right place to put the tool, everything like that. Today, we use 100%, different technology stack. Even the cabling that we were using, right? We had to learn. It sounds basic, right? But we were pretty dumb back then. Is you don't use standard cable that you would in an office.
It's shielded.
Let's put shielded. Let's put outdoor cable everywhere. So that's our standard now, right? Is I'm going to run outdoor cable even if it's inside
Indoors.
the barn.
Yeah.
I'm going to run that everywhere. I don't use anything but that today.
So if you guys were on a team or a committee around redesigning a sow farm, right? Let's say we're going to build a new sow farm. Are there things that people should take into consideration with materials or like even in rooms? Like, are we at a place where the swine industry, if you're building a 10,000 sow farm, we need a dedicated IT room that is protected from the outside environment? Do we avoid the tin walls? Do we stick more to fiberglass or plywood? What are some things? And maybe it's not a big enough deal for it to really change how people design a barn, but are there things?
Yeah, I would say there are going to be people in the industry that say, give me my own IT room, make sure it's cooled to this temperature, make sure it's heated to this temperature, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to say that's overbuilt.
Overbuilt.
Right? That's going to be overbuilt.
Building it, you could replace it multiple times over before you break even on that.
Exactly. So it's like, hey, let's make sure that, to me, it's about placement. And so, if in my world, I love to run all your cabling through the attics. I love to put switches in the attics. So to me, rather than having an IT room, I want power outlets in certain places in the attics. You know, that way I can throw a network cabinet up in the attic and I can run everything from there, right? And then, you know, depending on the facility, right? There's times that we don't even have to shower into that facility to go service something. So that's kind of my preference, right? And what we've had a lot of success with, you know, people come to me all the time and they're like, well, Jay, like, it's not heated and cooled. And I'm like, yeah, guys, I have equipment that's been out there for X number of years.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of failures on it.
Yeah, even the stuff, which we're obviously not using the same thing, but Ubiquity is what you guys use. We use Ubiquity, and might make we have slightly different approaches depending on, you know, cost and approach and how much management you might be doing. So there are differences, but the stuff we've had in the field for 6-7 years, still working.
Correct.
It's impressive how durable that equipment is, if properly waterproofed and
yeah. And I was going to say that's, I think, what it comes down to. Are you making sure? Do you have the right ventilation, right? Not overly ventilated, but like, let's make sure you have the right ventilation to the equipment. Let's make sure that it's waterproof, it's sealed well. We're dealing with dust in the environments too. Like, that was a big thing to me is, you know, in the feed mills, right? Dealing with all the dust that you deal with and stuff like that. That was a learning experience as well, for me. And how do we make sure that we're protecting our equipment to handle that amount of dust?
Yeah, I think one thing with internet infrastructure, regardless of who's doing it, if we're going to be competitive technologically into the future, it's a infrastructure cost at this point. It's not something tied to a particular program or technology. At this point, it's just basic infrastructure, especially when building a farm.
And I mean,
putting it in from the get-go.
Today, we can go through so many things that require you to have a network built throughout your farm, whether it be pig flow, whether it be ESF feeders, whether you're doing Maximus, whether you're doing Gestalt, whatever, you know, right? There's going to be so many use cases that require cameras. Yeah. I mean, we can run through so many, your ventilation controllers, everything like that. There's so many things that are requiring connectivity through that barn. And I think it's, I talk about it with our team and stuff like that. It's our job to make sure that we're building a reliable enough network for that customer, but let's not overbuild that they can't afford it, because the industry needs to be able to adopt this technology.
Yes.
But if the network costs too much, they're not going to adopt the technology. They're not going to become more efficient and stuff like that, which will hold them back, and it will hurt our industry.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at some of that, and I'll throw out rough numbers. You take a sow farm. We won't give it a particular size, but you might be able to put in a network with full management capabilities, and it's everything that farm is going to need for quite some time, full service capabilities, and let's say 40, 50 grand.
Yeah.
And then that exact same farm, exact same scenario, with a overbuilt solution put together in-house could cost over 200 grand. I mean, we're not talking about a few $1,000s. We're talking about 3, 4, 5x the cost, and for zero additional benefit.
I mean, like Justin was just doing a quote. It's 250 grand from another company to get connectivity through this barn, right? And ours was in that 50 grand range.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like 250 grand, the producer literally couldn't afford to adopt the technology that they wanted to adopt.
Well, it kills the ROI of it kills the ROI of multiple technologies.
Correct. 100%.
Yeah.
And so I think, the network, it's our job to make sure that, hey, the network has an ROI that says, hey, it makes sense to adopt an ESF feeding system. It makes sense to adopt a data entry system that's real time throughout the farm, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, ultimately, it's an enablement tool of technology.
How frequently do you have producers regret full connectivity? Because it is a cost, and I mean, you might not use it right away.
I've never had one.
Never had one.
I haven't had one say.
Even the smaller producer.
I've never had someone come to me and say, "I regret putting this in." Right. I have had people. I got a customer right now. He's not using Wi-Fi in his facilities at all. Today, he doesn't have a use case. He's using cameras, so he needs the network infrastructure and stuff like that. So we have switches running through his barns. We have cameras in his barns and stuff like that. And we have Wi-Fi access points. And I had a conversation with him. I said, hey, what are you using the Wi-Fi for? He said, nothing. I said, okay, so let's take it out. He was looking at another couple farms, and I said, let's take it out. He said, no. He said, the cost it's cost effective enough. Let's put it in because it's going to enable a technology in the next 12 to 18 months that I want. Yeah. I know it's going to, so let me just put it in today. He didn't know. He doesn't. I don't think he still knows exactly what it's going to enable. But he knows that he's going to need it in the next 12 to 18 months.
One thing about internet infrastructure that I think was glaring when it went in was there's obvious use cases of ESF, pig flow, connect staff, do all the things. It was all of the things you wouldn't have ever been able to justify through ROI that just came out of the woodwork. I'm now in the farm and I can't get I'm Wi-Fi calling, or now my staff, when they're at break, they had it was just little things that popped up that you don't think about. But now, once Wi-Fi is accessible from anywhere, the little things, the paper cuts started to disappear because there were immediate free solutions that already existed in the world that could now be utilized because of that connectivity.
And I was talking, sometimes I even talk to some of the farmers, right? And they're like, you know what? It's nice to be able to, when, that truck is running an hour late and I'm supposed to be doing a loadout.
Let me know.
Let me know, but also let me go. It's 2:00 in the morning. Let me go watch Netflix and take a nap, right? There's that kind of, hospitality type deal, right? And it makes it more enjoyable.
Well, for people, there is MDM. So if you don't want
Correct.
people watching Netflix, you can disable that.
100%. You can disable it, but
It's there. It's a free, yeah.
Some people are just like, hey, or on lunch break, I want to let people watch YouTube, or I want to, I want to enable some of them, make it enjoyable for them to be in that barn. They're in that barn, 12 hours a day. Let's make it enjoyable.
It's a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
If done the right way, it's a competitive advantage.
100%.
What about you, Justin? So now you're pulled into all of this. You're helping sell and kind of support. What are some things that you've noticed that really stuck out to you in this whole digitization of pig farms?
Well, I think we've learned we work with early adopters and we work with laggards for sure, right? So finding out who that is, and I can usually see that just by going to the barn the first time, right? What kind of technology do they have now? And been chasing that kind of an angle. I think where our focus is now, and I'm sure we'll get deeper into it, is that the biosecurity piece. And I think last November I was at Pig Livability over in Omaha. I know we saw you over there, and just listen to some of these veterinarians give their presentations, and where's their passion and things like that. So that's kind of what we've been building around. And as a sales executive, it's nice. I've been here 3 years, and I think every 6 months the direction would change, right? We were an MSP and we were building the connectivity the whole time, but now we've got this kind of a base product that we're really pushing out there in the industry, and going to be very successful, I think. And it's needed, right? It's not a want, it's a need. So
you probably know we talk a lot about innovation in pork production here. What you might not know is SwineTech, the team behind this podcast, is leading the charge with their PigFlow platform. SwineTech is dedicated to empowering pork producers worldwide to provide high-quality, individualized care for every pig. Their world-class workforce management and point-of-care platform, PigFlow, streamlines, automates, and monitors routine and emergency care, communication, daily workflows, administrative duties, and herd diagnostics. This enables producers to optimize workflow and task clarity, execution efficiency, prioritization, and simplification of compliance assessments. PigFlow empowers managers with the ability to analyze and refine their processes and make adjustments to enhance overall value. If you're interested in learning how producers are maximizing their resources, enhancing efficiencies, and improving employee engagement in pig care with PigFlow, visit swinetechnologies.com.
Well, you deserve a lot of credit too, because I remember when you joined trying to understand the industry and its needs and what was capable, along with Jay, but you were just kind of figuring out, I need to find a more cost competitive solution. I need to figure out how to round the edges here so that way we can make this happen. So Justin, when you joined, a lot's changed since then, and kind of go back to that. What has changed within the company? Because when you joined, you were kind of Mr. Orbit. You were the guy.
Yep.
What's changed?
So I would say 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago tomorrow is when I first came on. And
Congratulations.
Hey, thanks. Well, let's wait one more day, see how it goes. So anyway, it was, I was the one, I'd say, dedicated pure Orbit farm, right? We had a lot of shared services, things like that, and employees and things. But, it was my job to go out there and sell product, and I was trying to understand what's our product, what's the market looking for. So for me, it was just going to a lot of shows, meetings. My first show was actually, I should say, my first event was World Pork after 1 week on the job. So, I had some interesting conversations in the booth. And
yeah, you were spoiled.
Yeah, right.
Are all the events like this?
Yeah, do I get to eat this every single day? So, but no, and then, from there it was, I think, Carthage, Swine and stuff. And just listening, taking it all in and, learning the industry was important for me because, if I'm going to go out there and try to sell something, I've always wanted to be able to talk about it. So I think that was my focus there. And then, connectivity, and these, one of my big first ideas or things was let's go up on these grain legs and let's shoot internet to all these different finishing barns or whatever sites all the way around. You can save some money there. We can turn around and support that, give them 24/7 report, make sure make sure that connectivity stays up. So that's kind of what I was doing for probably 6 to 12 months was just, that connectivity and let's get people online. And then it kind of changed there too. Eventually it's evolved to let's get through the barn, because now the need is there. We need that connectivity through the barn, whole different beast than to the barn. So doing that for about probably 6, 12 months. And then, I'd say in November of 24 is really started looking at this, the biosecurity side of things. And they've been talking about a biosecurity suite for quite a while since I've been here, but here's a product that we could really get into the market with and start building a resume. And Jay can add more to that, but that's the direction that we're at now.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that. And I appreciated you when you joined too, because I had just torn my pectoral muscle and I was in a sling, and I had to play bags left-handed.
Oh,
and he decided he'd play left-handed too. I think he still beat me though.
Yeah, I think you still owe me a beer or something for that.
I think we walked over to the free beers and I gave you one.
Most likely.
So let's talk biosecurity. So you've learned what it means to get internet to a farm, through a farm, to support that, sustain it, make it reliable, support it without going into the farm as much as possible. Now you're getting hit with biosecurity, and people are saying, hey, you're doing a great job with these things. Can you help us here?
Yeah, and I think, what led to it, right, is, we were doing MSP type services, managed service provider, IT managed service provider. And Justin, he was out trying to sell that. He started in 2023. He's out trying to sell that. We're not getting the traction that we need to as a company, right? I mean, and
Probably to the point where you're saying, like, do we want to be in this space
yeah,
or not?
and that was some of the questions, right? It was like, man. And so go back to, 2022, and I said, like, why did we say that Orbit needed to be its own brand, its own company, and everything like that? And I said, it takes a different team. It takes a specialized toolkit from a people, process, and tools, right, to deliver connectivity to a farm. And part of that was the biosecurity, right? And so we always said, hey, let's figure out a biosecurity suite that we can launch some products, right? And so it's been about a year and a half, 2 years now that we have been developing, our first biosecurity product that's now available in the marketplace.
What's it called?
Biosecurity Eyes on Glass, right? And so really what we're doing is we're leveraging security cameras to make sure that the people are following the right biosecurity protocols in the barns.
What does that look like then? Walk me through how you even got to that part.
Yeah. So it was, hey, we're putting the connectivity through the barn, right? And we're putting cameras into the farms for people. And then it was like, hey, someone asked, can you guys monitor it for us? And, it was like, okay.
What does that look like?
What does that look like? And it was trying to figure that out, right? And, my first answer was no. And I get in the truck and I call Seth up, who's with CCR, and I call him up and I said, hey, got this thrown at us. I said no, though. He said, why'd you say no?
Yeah.
And I said, well, like,
What do you mean?
it just doesn't make sense to do. And he's like, hey, he's like, you, or one of your biggest strengths is building out teams that can be cost effective. And so he's like, explore that. Like, and so I went home that night and I've been hiring team members in the Philippines since about 2020, 2021. And so it was like, okay. And most of those team members are tech support team members, right? And so I was like, can I train someone on biosecurity that can watch this? And so, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can make it work. And, there's other places that, I explored, right? Other countries, and the other countries are cheaper. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Not as good though. Not as good.
Quality is not there, right? And today
The work ethic of the Filipino workforce is pretty great.
it's very aligned to, if you look at their culture and you look at our culture, it's very, very similar cultures, right?
From a work ethic standpoint?
From a work ethic standpoint. If you look at, their English, very, very well spoken. I can call up any of my team members. We're sitting at, about 25, 30 team members there right now. I can call them all up. They speak very good.
And so what are they doing?
So they're basically monitoring, all those entry points for us, right?
So you have live monitoring of all of the security cameras across multiple sow farms in the industry.
Correct.
Okay.
And so basically monitoring, is everyone following the proper biosecurity, animal welfare, and people safety, right? Are the three kind of categories we look at. And you look at it, on your mortality room. You look at it on your loadout. You look at it in all these different spaces, and it's crazy the amount of stuff that you see. It actually makes you sick sometimes when you actually watch the video. I've seen video of, people, a truck driver walking from a trailer right into the barn, right back into the truck, right? That unfortunately is probably couple weeks we see something like that. We've seen, January we saw someone break into a farm. 3:00 in the morning, someone broke into a farm.
How quickly did you get notified that there was a break-in?
It was probably 3 or 4 minutes.
Oh, wow. So you're sleeping in bed.
I'm sleeping in bed, and my phone rings. And, it's one of our team members, and she's like, Jay, I think we have a break-in. And I'd been told before that there's break-in in barns. And
Yes.
I didn't believe it. No way. No one's...
People running off with a few pigs. Like, it happens.
Yeah. But to me, I'm just like, no, this doesn't happen. And so I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, okay, let me pull it up really quick. And I pull it up on my phone, and I'm like, yep, that's a guy that shouldn't be there. And so, no, we notified that producer within probably 10 minutes of it happening. Unfortunately, we didn't get the guy. We still have to get him.
Yeah.
But, we alerted of that very, very quickly so they could take action.
Well, people don't talk about it a lot, but in that situation, 3, 4 in the morning, that's not outlandish that somebody might be showing up to do early morning farrowing work at like 4:30. And the last thing you want for the safety of your team is to show up to a farm that's currently in break-in status, because then you start to deal with some violence that could lead to some very bad situations. So like that's pretty awesome that you're able to notify them that fast.
Yeah, yep. And they were able to, notify their team, and that was part of the notification is, hey, don't come to work.
So what, did like SWAT show up and like search the farm?
So yeah, it was pretty interesting,
because you got to see it all through the cameras. What happened?
Got these guys coming up, 2 officers coming up. It was 2 or 3 officers coming up. They got their boards. They're open up the door to the main entry to the farm. They're yelling into the farm. They're
big flashbang.
And it's like, holy cow. You see them violate every single biosecurity protocol, and you're kind of just
so cautiously call the police.
You're just laying there and you're like, oh my goodness.
My goal is to protect against biosecurity. We report the break-in, which is good. But now we have police officers breaking biosecurity. How do you reprimand public officials like police officers for breaking biosecurity?
Exactly. It was like, oh crap, I hope this farm doesn't break.
Oh, can you imagine?
That was one of my concerns, It's like, oh crap. We notified of this guy, but is now the officer is going to make the farm break,
So how often are people breaking biosecurity? And what aspect of the farm entry process is probably the worst?
Every producer is different.
Okay.
I'll say that. I will say our team finds something every day on every single producer that we work with. Some of them a lot more, some of them a lot less, right? I would say, we look at, we were talking to someone yesterday, and he had a good analogy about it. He was saying every opportunity is a near miss, right? And he's like, hey, it's a near miss, it's a gift from God, and we got to take that gift. And so basically, and basically what we've seen is you put the cameras in, we find a lot of violations at first. Sometimes we're finding on a single barn, we can find, 40 or 50 a day.
Holy cow.
Sometimes we can find 20 a day. It ranges. it truly does.
Is it mainly that Danish entry?
It can be that, it can be, it all depends on the producer, right?
Fair.
And, it's some of it's minor, right? Some of it's, or what I might consider minor, right? And some of it's not using hand sanitizer when you're coming into the boot room. Some of it's,
Which, to your point, it's producer specific because some people don't even have hand sanitizer
correct
coming into the boot area.
Yeah, 100%. But some of it's, one example is, some of it's, there was a team member that been a farm manager for like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they put in our solution. And they went to her and said, hey, you're not following biosecurity protocols. And they were like, this thing changed 4 years ago. Yeah, I never adopted that. And so it's like, holy cow. And that particular change that they had made was a pretty major change that they had made, in my opinion, right? And so it was like, holy cow, we can help prevent near-miss situations like that.
So how we look at like PigFlow, it's the conduit to finally operationalize your processes. And how I see Eyes on Glass then is you finally have the conduit, the verification in place that when you create a new process across the system, you can know within a day, a week, did that process get adopted system-wide?
Yep. And is it followed every single day by every single team member that walks into your barn?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're a visitor. It doesn't matter if they're a team member. It doesn't matter who they are. I hate to say it, we catch owners doing stuff sometimes around that,
Oh, yeah.
And
that's got to be a hard phone call.
and it's just like, and some of them are testing us, right? Some of them it's just a test, and sometimes they'll be like, hey Jay, I was just testing you today, like, and stuff like that. Awesome, I appreciate it, I really do. And they're doing more minor, what I would classify as minor violations.
Gotcha.
Right, but then you got some major stuff.
Because they're wanting to test you, but they're not wanting to break the farm at the same time. So.
Exactly. They don't want to break that farm, so they're doing something minor, and they're like, hey, we just want to see if your team catches it. And
fair.
I feel it took a while to get a process that I could go hire someone and train them, and what did the training process look like, right? And how long did I train them, like before I put them in front of a customer?
Yeah, how much time does it take to train somebody from the Philippines, never been in a farm?
So most of them that I hire today are animal science graduates, right?
So they get the general concept. Obviously,
none of them have been into a U.S. Operation, right? But most of them have been into a operation there. And so they get the general concept. We go through a full month of training before we assign them to any customer. Once we assign them to a customer, then they go through 2 weeks of specific training for that customer. And so it's about a month and a half before we actually say you're good to go on your own.
Gotcha. So when we look at the industry and what's really taking off, it's a lot of it's verifying things that we had always thought were being done or never had a good way of quantifying whether it was or wasn't done. So you look at the stuff we're doing for day-to-day execution, yours for maybe on-farm biosecurity, Farm Health Guardian for transportation biosecurity. You've got like bin sentry and barn tools for verifying bins and all the other things that are out there. ESF for verifying our sows eating or not. The solutions that are verifying what we should be able to do. Anybody could say people should just follow the biosecurity. Like, well, 30 years ago, we just did it. It's like, we don't know that, first of all, because we didn't verify it. But you can't know. You can't. And then I think people finally do it, and then they see this massive upside because now they see how often things weren't being done the way they thought they were. And now we're starting to see less breaks, more pigs out the door. And it just seems like there's a lot of momentum right now for the technologies and the solutions that are focused on a real practical value proposition. And maybe this isn't computer vision in barns that are identifying sick pigs. And when we identify a sick pig, what do we do about it? I wouldn't put that in the practical category yet. But the ones that are truly easy to adopt, practical, we've been there, we've been doing it for years, and now it's just about how to be better because now we know what actually is happening. They're taking off. What are you seeing around AI in that? Because now that technology is getting a foothold in these operations, we are getting better verification. It's becoming a common part of the system. People are naturally now asking, well, what about AI? Which I think people need to pump the brakes a little bit on trying to bring AI to everything, because AI has a place and it isn't in everything, at least in my opinion. But in your sphere, where are you seeing AI now, and where do you see it in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so I would say, now we're using very minimal AI, right? I think, where are we going, right? Is, we kind of have a patent that helps you identify and say, hey, did someone follow the proper biosecurity protocols from point A to point B, or and stuff like that. And really, if you look at the health pyramid, right? And so where I see it going in the future, and if we go back to Justin's bar story, right? I can look at, and it's very easy for me to do, and go and say, Justin was at the bar 5 days a week. He shows up at 6 p.m.
Justin's like, oh, man, you're disclosing too much.
He leaves at 11 p.m.
You can edit that, right?
And he has, 4 drinks, and he starts off with 2 Miller Lights, and then he goes to something else.
That's why you wanted the water.
And so, I can, AI can help us do something like that, right?
And it's already here.
And it's about, and it's here. There's a lot of use cases behind it. It's about now, how do we bring that into the barn, right? And I would say there's certain places in the barn, something that, we are working on around the patent is, how can I know that Matt went into Brenneman Hill Farm today? And how do I look at all the cameras that any producer has installed, and how do I make sure that he's not going to another sow farm tomorrow?
Yeah.
Whether it, any customer, right? So I would say some of those use cases are here today. It's about how do we apply them, right? I would say there is, more advanced things that I think are still hard to do with AI. I've been working with my team on how to train something to monitor the clean, dirty line just with feet, right? Mm-hmm. And it's pretty hard.
It's hard.
It's hard to do, right? But something that's easier to do is, hey, I saw them in my boot room at this time. I didn't see them in my break room for 7 minutes, so I know they took a good shower. That's pretty easy to do. It's hard to say, is their hair wet? I can't get to that point yet.
Well, AI, natural language processing, some of the LLMs available, and people's experience, because when people think AI, they think ChatGPT.
100%.
Right? AI has been around for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we started SwineTech in 2015, we were looking at using machine learning for voice recognition and computer vision for some birthing detection. It, as a user of AI, can feel like, oh, this is just so easy. Well, yeah, when you're dealing with submitting a document or some numbers and you want it to do something, to just regurgitate something or to remix it in a way that sounds like some human language, yeah, that's really taken a massive leap. But when we're going into computer vision, using machine learning, just know, is the hair wet or not? That's a different beast. And I think that ChatGPT and the experiences people are having with it are distorting what is a reality of the expense and the time and the challenges that come with a similar level of success in some of these other facets of AI. And I think we're overgeneralizing how easy something should be with AI. And
well, and like you said, the cost behind it. I just got out of a month training of AI, right? And one of the things that we were talking about is the infrastructure expense behind AI, right? And ChatGPT has a low cost infrastructure expense. If I started piping video to an AI model,
yeah,
the cost would be tremendous. And it would be something that it doesn't make sense yet to do all that if we were piping, all this video 24/7 to a model, to an engine.
a different beast.
100%.
Yep.
So
what do you want producers to know about Orbit going forward and the work you're doing with Eyes on Glass and some of these other areas? Is it at a point where if anybody wants to get involved, they just call and I can have Eyes on Glass tomorrow? Or what does that process look like? Maybe Justin, maybe you'd be a good...
Well, I mean, there's some things to consider, like what do they have now for technology and camera systems? Some of our producers already had that. Some of them had to add cameras. Some of them don't have it at all. So in that case, we'll go in and we can put in that network, that surveillance network, and get it online. So yeah, it's not going to happen tomorrow. And then, once the infrastructure is in place, there's about 30 to 45 days of onboarding. We're meeting with their team to set these protocols. What are the violations? Let's define that. And then we've got, our team that we're building out for them that then is going to do that 4 weeks of video training that Jay was mentioning. And after that's when we're kind of launch the product and really get them the results.
I would say, a thing to keep in mind is, if we rewind back to the beginning of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Infrastructure, there is a cost-effective way to put the infrastructure into the barn.
Yep.
So if you in the past have been looking at adopting any type of technology, I encourage all the viewers to really look at infrastructure cost now. See what it looks like. Does it make sense?
Budget for it. Plan for it.
Budget for it. Plan for it. When you go out, when you're going to remodel a farm, just budget for it. When you're going to, because you're going to need it. If you don't think you need it today, you're going to need it in the next 12 to 24 months is my personal belief, right? And then, so from an infrastructure perspective, just evaluate your infrastructure and say, hey, does it make sense to do now? Can I adopt a small piece of technology? It might not be Eyes on Glass. It might be, I just need it for my ventilation controllers, or whatever. Then, I think it's about, hey, look at, does Eyes on Glass make sense? Is biosecurity important enough to my operation? And is people a big enough risk to my operation to look and say, hey, I want a team to help audit and bring a peace of mind to me that all the biosecurity protocols are getting followed on a daily basis by everyone.
Yeah.
And I'll add, as far as budgeting, if we can stave this off or even avoid, a break, let's stave it off for a year. You can afford hundreds of these networks, right? So, I know most producers plan on at least one break. So I'm just asking for, little percent of that for that peace of mind.
Yeah, and I think maybe a rough number, and it's different for everybody, but if you're looking internal to build out a network and you're over $10 a sow space, so for 5,000, you're over 50 grand. I think at any point in time, you should be quoting external partners, and obviously having you guys on, because I think Orbit should be one of those that you quote. Even if you don't go with you guys like it gives you something to compare against to ask the question. All right, what's going on right now? What is because if I am 3, 4, 5x, at least then you can go back and go, here is a network, here are the parts, here's all the services and support we're going to get. How are we coming up with an extra $100,000?
And I think, we offer, something that we offer, right, is 2 different tier levels on the network, right? Obviously, you have your cost of your infrastructure up front and stuff like that, but do you want a truck roll included so you have a ongoing OpEx, same price every single month? If you have a failure, you know that we're just going to call you up and we're going to say, hey, need us to roll a truck, we'll roll a truck. You'll never see an invoice for it unless it's something that you did, right? Malicious. But typically, but I would say, and so you have to look at the internal cost to support that as well.
Yes.
Right. And what is that cost? But yeah, no, I agree with you. If it's over $10 a space up front, you need to
seek external advice, opinions.
Yeah, and see, and sometimes, it's internal IT teams, they have these cybersecurity standards. And it's like, okay, let's talk about, are there ways that we can work together and still be secure and still get that network built out for you?
Yeah, because let's say I'm a really big organization. I don't want it tied into my system because I'm worried about all these things. Well, it can be its own isolated network.
100%.
And you can save a crap load of money. Heck, you could build 4 of the same networks for the same cost that you would be just trying to avoid it connecting. And often what you find is the IT networks or IT teams want to connect everything. But what is the value of having it connected? And there is almost no value
of
not having a separate network.
What's the value of having it disconnected? Actually, is what I like to talk about, right?
Exactly.
Is everything that you connect to the network creates a bigger cybersecurity risk.
Yeah.
So for these IoT things, whether it be cameras, whether it be your pig flow stuff, whether it be sensors that people are putting into the barns, anything. Sure, let's look at building their own network. Our computers can be connected to our corporate network, and they need to be secure. But hey, my IoT network, there's an advantage almost to not having it on the corporate network.
There's an advantage both in security and in cost.
Correct, 100%.
It's like a double win.
Yep, 100%. So,
no, it's exciting to see where everything's going, and super thrilled to have you guys on to talk about it. So I want to wrap up with some rapid fire questions here. And so we'll start with, because we just hit it, the bar. What is the best bar song?
Best
Going
bar
right
song?
to you.
I don't know.
What
Probably.
gets everybody going?
Oh, Sweet Caroline for the singers. Everybody starts singing that in there.
Come on.
That's definitely not your Iowa fight song, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I love this bar. I mean, it just depends what you're looking for, right? I mean, if you want, we do karaoke 3 nights a week, and those are the ones that get everybody really involved.
What brand of beer sells the most?
We're in Iowa. You know the answer to
Busch
that.
Light.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they did do a little, during March Madness, so they had a bracket for the beers, but it was none of the popular ones. So then everybody got behind hams, and that ended up winning it. And I was shocked how many people drink hams and drink a lot of hams. And so
Just
by
to
winning
win.
it, then they got it for a whole month for $2.50. So it might have outsold Busch Light that month. But I did not have a hams.
So what's your favorite cut of pork?
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Oh, mine's going to be, well, everybody's going to go to bacon, but, as far as, I like the loin, I buy that big old 10-pound loin, cut it up. I can make butterfly pork chops. I can make a loin. I can do all kinds of things with that. So that's my go-to.
How about you, Jay?
I'd say a pork butt.
Yeah.
Just, you can't go wrong.
So is there a cut of pork or a pork recipe that you never had before you started working in the swine industry, but after getting in the industry, you've heard about it, and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to try that, and now it's kind of a more normal thing in your day-to-day?
For me, I'd say no. I've been eating pork's probably been my favorite meat my whole life, so this turned out really well for me.
Yeah.
All these shows and all the pork, and I'm just fine with that. So.
Had you ever had a pork burger before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say what I had. I don't know if it was before or after I started here, but those brat burgers, which I'm not sure what the difference is between that and a pork burger, but
It's
those
very
things can be
different.
pretty damn delicious. So yeah, that's yeah. I would say I think you and I actually a couple of years ago were over at Iowa Pork Congress, and they had that taste dinner. What's it called? Taste of Elegance or
Taste of
something Monday
Elegance.
night.
And they canceled that. It
Well,
was so
I know. And you go to 9 different. Everybody's got to cook a pork loin a different way.
It was like
so,
15.
Yeah, that was something. I mean, you get
needed
full
a
pretty
hotel
quick.
though, or a designated driver, because you would have 15 different tables where you got a piece of like a pork dish
Yep.
and a beer,
It was good.
because they were sampling both their beer or wine
Yep.
or liquor
Yep.
and their pork item. And after you went to 15 of those tables, because you had to judge it,
Yeah.
yeah, you were not driving.
No, we weren't. Yeah, I just remember that pork loin night. And I was like, well, this is all the things they come up with that I never would have thought of. So.
What about you?
Yeah, I would say I'd never had a pork burger,
Oh, okay.
And I would say I prefer a pork burger over a hamburger now.
It's so good.
It's so good. And I would say, I'm used to just frying up some bacon, right? And I
Yeah.
would say the different ways that I've ate bacon since being in the industry, seeing these producers cook.
If your first customer's Brenneman,
Oh,
and you didn't learn anything more about how to eat bacon from Rob during that time, I'd question how involved you were.
Brenda and there cooks some great bacon in the mornings. She has some excellent bacon. So, yeah.
So if you could go back in time and have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Mine'd probably be Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Probably
Why?
He was crazy enough to change technology and make computers affordable, right? And so I would just say, having a conversation with him on how understanding his brain a little bit more, I guess. So
We had one of our engineers on here, and his answer was Steve Wozniak.
oh yeah.
Which, if you're the engineer, that's the guy you want to talk to.
That's the guy that you want to talk to. Yep.
So would you want to go back and have dinner with him at the very beginning of his stuff, or would you want to pull him forward and bring him back to modern day?
I would say, if I went back to the struggles that he, learning more about, in the 1998 era
Okay.
of Apple computer, right? And what was in his mind back then to look at it, even today and say, like, what was different about your vision, and just talk about some of their failures as well. I mean, in startup business, right, we all have failures, and learning, I like to learn about other companies' failures and what's working and what's not for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, just how small the whole iPod phase was. But when we were in it, and
It was
when we
crazy.
were younger, it didn't feel short.
no,
But in the grand scheme of things, wow, did they move from, hey, here's an iPod to here's a iPhone incredibly fast.
I mean, it was just like probably 4 or 5 months ago, I rewatched the first iPhone launch.
Yeah.
Just for the fun of it, and it was just crazy to see. You look at the features that were launched in that first iPhone,
That's how basic it was.
how basic, and it was like, wow. And then you look at what's in our pockets today, and it's crazy.
Well, and even how BlackBerry owned the market and they just blew it.
100%.
Like they blew it.
Yeah. I
Well-
mean, I remember growing up as an IT system administrator, right? And it was everyone, let's make sure everyone has BlackBerries, not a Windows PC, or like there was the Windows phones at the time, and I discouraged everyone on those. It was just get BlackBerry, and then it quickly pivoted to iPhone.
Yeah.
But you, if you go back in time, who would you have dinner with?
I don't know if I can answer that right away. I probably need to prep.
You've had a
on
lot of
that.
time to think about it.
I know, but I've been listening to this, and then I started thinking about the iPhone and how like the first release was somebody left it on a table and it was supposedly stolen, and that's how it got.
I mean, you can go all the way back to Adam and Eve, so you got it about anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go just to an early president and see even if it's like a Lincoln or something, and not that I know what we'd have conversation with about at dinner, but just all the different stuff he dealt with and went through and changes he had to make and the flack he took for some of the stuff. So probably a presidential figure.
Gotcha.
How about you? I'm sure you've been asked this a bunch of times.
Oh, and it
Is
always
it the same
changes.
answer? Oh, does it? Good.
No,
What's
no,
next?
I think it always changes. I mean, because a new thing pops into your mind, and we're not talking perfect. Like, I think Jesus would naturally be very that's for me, that's an obvious answer. So I kind of go and try to find some other odd ones. Meeting an Egyptian pharaoh would have been pretty cool. Like in their day when Egypt had the military force and everything all set up and everything was newly built and beautiful, that would have been a really cool time to go to. I don't know what would happen if I brought them to modern day. I think they might just keel over and die. But like at that point, it's like that. What is it? That movie when they dig up Encino Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'd probably have like an Encino Man experience here, but I think that'd be kind of cool is to talk with a pharaoh and understand what the heck.
Yeah, I mean along those lines, even go back to like Constantine or somebody like that, right?
Yeah.
Like to your point, runs an empire and
Alexander
an empire
the Great,
that size back then.
Caesar. Cleopatra, it'd be kind of crazy, but
Cleo will be all right. Then you might get to see a snake charmer or something.
yeah. So last question, if you had a golden nugget for listeners, a bit of life wisdom, something that's really helps you in your life or in your career, what would it be?
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's a golden nugget, but my daughter who just graduated, thank you. But
Congratulations.
one of the big things I used to always tell her is, what she does in the dark shines through in the light. Just a goofy saying like that. But I think, practice, rehearse, and help prep yourself and be ready for the next day.
Good one.
I would say probably ask a lot of questions. Always learn. So
I would say I do that, don't I?
yeah. Exactly. Got to always ask a lot of questions. Make sure, I'd say we wouldn't be here today if we weren't asking a lot of questions and learning. And our biosecurity product just came from asking a lot of questions. So,
thank you for joining us on this episode of Popular Pig. We aspire to learn and grow together through the experience and wisdom shared by our esteemed guests. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues within the swine industry. For more information, please go to popularpig.com to receive updates when new episodes are available. Popular Pig is brought to you by SwineTech, the award-winning creators of SmartGuard and PigFlow. To learn how PigFlow can help you streamline your workforce and reduce piglet and sow deaths, visit swinetechnologies.com.